So you want to buy a condo out here in Hawaii. How hard could it be? What could go wrong? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a handful of things you need to look out for and things that are a lot more complicated than just looking at a price, maybe analyzing the property straightforward. There's lots of things you need to look out for, which a realtor should educate you on, but you should educate yourself on prior to even getting yourself into that boat. So in this video, we're going to show you how you can save yourself a lot of headaches, possibly tens of thousands of dollars, so that you don't screw yourself when you buy a beautiful condo out here in Oahu, Hawaii. So stick around to get all the details. See you on the other side. Hey guys, like I mentioned in this video, we are going to cover if you are looking to buy a condo out here in Hawaii, there's a handful of things you want to look out for when you're buying that condo. But before we jump into that, let me quickly introduce myself if this is your first time here. My name is Patrick. I'm a licensed real estate agent out here in Oahu, Hawaii, and have been for nearly a decade, helping buyers, sellers, and investors with their real estate needs. If you guys have any questions about buying condos, single family homes, whatever it is that you're looking for, I would be so happy to assist you. So feel free to reach out to me. Got my contact information right here, or you can directly DM me on any of my social media platforms. With that being said, let's jump into the condo life and what you want to look out for when you're buying a condo out here in Hawaii. The first thing you want to keep in mind is that when you're buying a condo in Hawaii and you're trying to analyze what the actual value of the property is, keep in mind that higher floors generally yield higher valuations. And this might be obvious for some people, but the reason for that is generally you get less street noise, you'll get a better view, and views yield higher valuations. So if you're buying, let's say, a one-bedroom condo on the third floor and it's listed for 400 grand, you might actually have a similar floor plan, exact same square footage, and it's on the 30th floor, and that one might be worth $500,000. You might see that this one-bedroom condo that's 500 square feet that's on the third floor sold for $425,000, but they're trying to sell this other one for $450,000 or $475,000. What could possibly be the difference? They're exactly the same. Well, the biggest difference is this one most likely is on the 31st floor and maybe has a better view, better breezes, less street noise. Generally, properties on higher floors yield higher valuation. The second thing you need to keep in mind compared to living in a single family home is in a condo, you are in a complex, you are in a building, so there are shared walls. Now, a lot of the buildings, especially in Waikiki or different parts of the island, are built with concrete or CMU walls. So generally you're not gonna have too much actual noise, but you are sharing a wall, but those walls are generally built out of CMU or concrete. So you don't have too much noise from your neighbors, but you are sharing a wall with them. You are in a complex, you're in a building, there's gonna be unit above you, below you. So you are sharing walls, you're sharing ceilings, and you're sharing floors. The third thing you have to keep in mind is if you plan on gutting this place and doing a bunch of renovations, you might want to hold off for a second because you have to keep in mind that those renovations need to get approved by the association. Now, generally you can get away with putting in new cabinets, new countertops, even putting in a new toilet and things of that nature. But if you're gonna be moving plumbing or electrical, generally that needs to be approved by the association and use a licensed plumber or electrician. But when you're doing cabinets, countertops, paint, anything inside the unit, you usually don't have to get approval, but there are certain things you do need to get approved. That's generally gonna be plumbing, electrical. If you're adding, let's say, a split AC unit, that needs to get approved because you need to have the compressor outside. So just things that are gonna be outside the unit or need a licensed professional generally need to get approved by the association. And also, almost always, flooring, as simple as that is, needs to generally be approved by the association, but as long as you obey the rules, it's generally pretty easy. File some paperwork, send it to them, and they generally will approve it. But if you're looking to move walls, move plumbing, all that stuff, that's gonna have to get approved. It might be a little bit more challenging if you're doing anything wild. The fourth thing you wanna keep your eye on is HOA fees or maintenance fees. This is a necessary evil. Basically, these HOAs or associations are a non-profit association that helps run the building. It's generally run by a board that's voted in by the unit owners. And there's an association that works side by side with the board for managing the building and making decisions, whether that's financially, rules, regulations, and things of that nature. But one of the things that they're always voting on is the HOA fees and how much to increase them. And on average, those HOA fees increase every single year between 4 and 12% annually. This is to match inflation, to make sure that they have enough money going to the reserves to fix any problems with the building. For example, if they have to replace the roof, they want to make sure they have enough money to do so, because if they don't, they will have to do a special assessment, which we'll go over shortly. Now, depending on where you are on the island, these HOA fees can be minimal or they can be insane, like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month. But on average, we see that the HOA, specifically we'll use Honolulu as an example, is generally between $450 and about $650, $700 a month. And that generally only covers sewer, water, and trash. Sometimes it'll cover electricity, but you'll generally see those ones are gonna be closer to $800 to $1,200 a month for those HOA and maintenance fees. The fifth thing you wanna look out for is parking. Number one, do you actually have an assigned parking spot? Because again, if you're living in Waikiki or Honolulu, you do not wanna be driving around looking for parking. You don't want your car to get towed because you parked in an illegal spot where they're doing street sweeping. So there is a higher valuation for owning a unit that does have a parking spot. You're probably looking anywhere between 25 and 45 grand, 30 grand for a parking spot. So it's a lot easier to sell your property for a higher valuation when you do have a parking spot. Now on that same topic, you wanna see, where's the parking spot located? Is it easy to get to? Do I have to go to the 30th floor of a parking building to find my parking spot? Is it a really tight parking spot? Is it right by a wall and I have a big truck? Is there a handful of guest parking stalls? What are the rules with the guest parking stalls? These are all things that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to simply parking and what your parking spot offers or doesn't offer. So make sure you check that before you buy any unit. The sixth thing is, once you get under contract, you are going to be provided what we call the condo documents. This is going to be a huge stack of documents. It's going to have a lot of information, and make sure you do not skim this. You want to make sure you look at this, and what I'm going to do right now is educate you on the things that you will find and what you want to look out for. Generally, what you want to look out for is, what are the HOA dues currently, and have they increased or plan on increasing in the following year? Is there any litigation against the building? Did somebody slip and fall and is now suing the association? Because if they are and they lose, those lawyer fees or whatever they get sued for could be spread across all the unit owners if the association's insurance doesn't cover it. Thirdly, are there any special assessments? Did they not have enough money and now they have to do a special assessment and ask everybody for money to pay for that roof that they have to repair? Once again, we'll dive deeper in that in a second. And lastly, are there any large projects coming up that might affect how much reserves they have, how much they have to use, and will that increase the HOAs in the near future? So let's break down each one of these. Once again, litigation. If somebody slips and falls, they sue the association's insurance doesn't cover it, they lose. That could potentially add an extra cost. If they don't have enough reserves to cover that cost, they could basically increase their HOA so they have enough money, or do a special assessment to tell everybody, hey, everybody needs to give us $1,000, $5,000 to cover these lawyer fees and us being sued. Special assessments. Now, what are special assessments? Special assessments are if you do not have enough reserves from collecting all those fees over the years, and they've used the money, or they didn't raise HOAs and they don't have enough money in this little bank account, and you have a leak in the roof and they need to replace the entire roof, or maybe the elevators don't work and they have to replace the elevator, it's gonna cost $2 million and they have no money, you have to get that fixed. You can't live in this place if you don't have an elevator to get you to the 30th floor. So what they will do is, if they don't have that money in the reserves, is they'll do this dreaded thing called a special assessment. And how a special assessment generally works is they'll say, hey, everybody's a part owner of this building. We are all responsible to pay for this elevator that's gonna cost $2 million. And we did our calculations, and you, Mr. Homeowner who just bought, have to give us $10,000 right now. And that can be a huge surprise that you do not want on your plate right when you close on your beautiful property. So those condo documents will have that information and let you know if there's a special assessment. The increase in the HOAs, again, like I mentioned before, 4 to 10% every single year on average. If you see that it's 20 or 30%, that could be somewhat of a concern. And this is where we dive deeper into it to look through the finances, talk to the association, see why that's happening, why there's such a large increase. Because once again, high HOAs not only hurt your pocket while you live there, but also make it more difficult for you to sell the property. That if you bought it and it had an $800 HOA maintenance fee, which is right in that average, and now it's $1,200, it's gonna be a lot harder to find a buyer who's gonna be okay with that, especially if you're gonna sell it in 3 or 4 years and now it's $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month just to own that unit for the HOA, not even for the mortgage payment. And projects, again, there's gonna be something called a reserve study in your condo documents. It's gonna discuss some of the things that might break in the near future, how much it may cost, and you dive into that with your realtor to analyze whether there's big projects that could affect the HOAs in the near future based on the finances, how much reserves they have, how much it's gonna cost. It's all a lot of things, but again, if you have a good realtor, like myself, we always review those documents with our clients and analyze them accordingly to make sure that we don't find ourselves in a bad situation in the near future. The next thing you wanna look at is buildings being underinsured. Now, over the last couple of years, we've seen this happen a lot in Florida. People are getting surprised with their building not being insured by these insurance companies because they're losing money hand over fist over all the climate changes, all these older buildings falling apart, and them basically having to pay out for for fixing these buildings. So now these insurance companies have basically said, hey, you know what, we're not going to insure your building anymore unless you fix X, Y, and Z, which basically creates a trickle effect where the association now needs to use all their reserves to fix these things to get insured, or they don't have enough money to actually fix the building. So now they don't have insurance. And if you don't have insurance, then you can't actually sell your property to somebody with a conventional loan, because that's a requirement by the lender. And then you can only sell to cash buyers. And so then it just drops the valuations of the property. So it becomes this domino effect. And this is something that we've seen in the last year, specifically out here in Hawaii, because a lot of the buildings out here were built in the 60s and 70s. A lot of them are having the same issues, whether that's plumbing, foundational, which is also called spalling. Are some of the main things that we're seeing that are issues, as well as outdated electrical boxes. And these insurance companies are saying, hey, if you don't fix those things, we're not going to insure you. And if they don't insure the building, that means you can't sell your unit to a conventional buyer. You can only sell it to cash buyers, which will drop the valuation of that property. I know it's boring stuff, but it's all really important, and I love talking about it, so you're gonna hear it. And the last thing you wanna look at is the rental rules. So obviously, depending on how you're zoned, some places will allow you to do short-term rental. There's not a lot of places, but I got plenty of videos to go over that, and I have an updated video coming out soon on some of the new laws and bills that are gonna be coming out about possibly getting rid of short-term rentals completely on some of the islands. But you want to look into the rental rules. Can I rent my unit out as an investment property for 30 days, for 60 days, for 90 days? Or do they say, hey, the association basically said, hey, you can only rent this place for a minimum of 6 months. So how it works is based on how you're zoned is the first rule, and the association has the second layer of rule. You might be zoned for short-term rental, but the association said, hey, I know we're zoned for it, but we are the next layer and the next yellow tape, and we're saying that you have to rent this place for a minimum of 90 days. And that can completely change your investment strategy. So it's important that you look at all this stuff and at least have your realtor get you this information, but most of it will be in those condo documents. Okay guys, I know that was a lot of information to cover, but it's super important that you educate yourself on this, because you may or may not be with a realtor who is actually educating you on this stuff. So if you do have any questions about purchasing a condo out here in Hawaii, I'd love to assist you. Feel free to reach out to me. Got my contact information right here, or you can directly DM me on any of my social media platforms. With that being said, I'm Patrick with PatrickLongRealty.com, powered by eXp Realty. I hope you guys have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Aloha.